Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Mortal. This movie tells the story of a psychologist trying to help a mysterious man who can make people and objects burn by touching them. When everyone tries to bring him down, the mysterious man has only two choices: fight or continue to hide. Who is he and where did he get superpowers like the God of Thunder? Let's find out in Mortal. Mortal begins by showing a forest area in Norway, where Eric, a man from the United States, has to live alone in the middle of the forest because he has no money. Eric came to Norway intending to find his family's whereabouts, but until now, he never found them. At night, Eric awakes from a nightmare that causes the trees outside his tent to burn to cinders. He didn't know why it happened, but for sure, Eric seems to often have nightmares and incidents like that, so he feels normal. One day, Eric decided to get out of the forest, looking for medicine to heal the burn on his leg. He intends to sneak into a clinic and steal some medicine and bandages with no money. After treating his wounds in a gas station bathroom and shaving his hair and beard, Eric begins walking down the road, presumably back to his campsite in the wilderness. On the way, a group of teenagers who were driving suddenly stopped on the side of the road and disturbed him. One of the boys, named Ole, then pushed Eric, making him angry. Eric then warned Ole that if he touched him, he would be burned. Ignoring Eric's warning, Ole grabs Eric by the collar, then collapses dead. After the incident, Eric was later arrested by the local police on charges of murder. Because he refused to talk, the police then asked a young psychologist named Christine to talk to Eric. Eric denies that he killed Ole. He tells Christine that he had warned Ole not to bother him, and what happened to Ole was completely out of his control. Christine and also Henrik, a sheriff who was listening to the interview session in another room, then didn't believe Eric's words just like that. When further investigated, Christine then learns that Eric is an American citizen of Norwegian descent who is most likely responsible for the fire incident on a farm that claimed the lives of 5 people 3 years ago. Christine convinces Eric to sit at the table and confirms he has many generations of Norwegian ancestry. Christine decides to have his handcuffs removed for comfort and trust, and she also confirms that everyone in the fire was a relative of Eric. When reminded again of the fire incident that killed his relatives, Eric was immediately overcome with guilt and finally admitted that he killed his relatives and Ole. When Eric starts to speak to tell what really happened, all of a sudden, Christine's hair starts to become statically charged and Eric pulls water up from her glass to show his power. Eric becomes agitated and his power is unleashed, which causes the building to start electrical fires. Christine determines his emotions control his powers and quickly counsels Eric on how to focus on controlling his power. Shortly afterwards, the U.S. Embassy arrived to take Eric back to America. A woman named Hathaway, one of the representatives of the United States Embassy, tried to get information from Eric, but Eric still refuses to talk to anyone other than Christine and asks them to sedate him during the helicopter ride. However, in the middle of the trip, Eric woke up because the sedative quickly wore off. Eric, who started to panic after finding out that he was tied up, then rebelled and tried to break free. In that instant, suddenly the weather turned cloudy. The more Eric tried to escape, the more it got worse until a thunderstorm broke out, which caused the helicopter they were traveling in to fall into the sea. Eric then realized that he could actually breathe underwater. Eric burns his restraints away and can save one American agent, Hathaway, and drags her to shore. After that, he immediately ran away from there. On the other hand, Ole's parents, who knew about the helicopter crash carrying Eric, and Eric, who managed to escape from the scene, then asked the police to act immediately. Bjorn, Ole's father, who doesn't want to let the man who killed his son still roam free, is determined to capture Eric alone to avenge his son's death. In his escape, Eric managed to find Christine and ask for help. Seeing Eric's condition, which was quite apprehensive because he had nowhere to go, Christine felt sorry for him and decided to help him. She takes Eric to her friend's cabin, where Eric explains that the fire incident started when he suddenly emitted a magical power that was so great that he couldn't control it, causing several people to die. Eric then showed the burn marks on his body and explained to Christine that he too would get hurt every time he used his powers. That's why he tries to restrain himself and avoid people as much as possible so they don't get hurt, as well as himself. While Eric is resting, Christine notices the plants are growing rapidly around her. Meanwhile at the hospital, Hathaway confirms with local police that Eric can control the weather and purposely causes their helicopter to crash into the sea so he can escape. Reluctant to hand Eric over to the police because she wants to investigate Eric's problems further, Christine decides that they must go to the farm to find clues explaining why Eric has superpowers. On the other hand, the local police have determined Eric and Christine as fugitives, so they put up barriers on several main roads and conduct strict checks on people who want to pass. Christine was forced to find an alternative route, But then, Christine, who was about to overtake the big truck in front of her, began to lose control, causing Eric to panic and accidentally release his power, causing Christine's car to crash and be damaged. After crashing, a truck driver gives Eric and Christine a lift. Meanwhile, Hathaway and Henrik find Christine's wrecked car on the side of the road, deduce where they are headed, and plan to catch them at Hardanger Bridge. Arriving at the bridge, Eric and Christine realize that the police had put up roadblocks and forced Eric to turn himself in. In the middle of the bridge, Eric surrendered himself calmly, but after one of the policemen injured Christine because she tried to rebel, Eric was instantly furious and accidentally released his power, which caused a thunderstorm to lose control. Christine tries to calm Eric down, telling him to control his emotions for everyone's safety, including himself. Eric uses the lightning to create a fence until he collapses and the storm subsides. Henrik and everyone who witnessed Eric's phenomenon firsthand increasingly questioned who he really was and why he could have such tremendous power. Henrik, who thought that Eric might not be a bad person, then sympathized, then came to Eric and Christine's aid and took them both to the hospital. On the other hand, Bjorn knew that Eric had been rushed to the hospital for medical treatment and then rushed there to kill Eric. On the radio, people started talking about Eric, who was claimed to be the incarnation of the Norse god Thor, because of his ability to control lightning. Arriving at the hospital, the doctors intended to examine Eric's physical condition to find out scientifically where Eric got such tremendous power. However, as Eric panicked again, he accidentally released his power, causing a power outage and causing equipment damage, resulting in a boy having a heart attack and dying. Knowing this, a guilt-ridden Eric decides to save the boy before it's too late. When he was about to go to the boy's room, suddenly Bjorn was behind him, pointing a gun and threatening to kill him to avenge Ol's death. Eric apologizes to Bjorn and accepts his fate if his life must end in his hands, but he begs Bjorn to let him save a child who desperately needs his help right now, and after that Bjorn can kill him. However, for some reason Bjorn became livid and gave up his intention to kill Eric. Without further ado, Eric rushed to the boy's room, put his hand on the unconscious boy's chest, then channeled a kind of energy into the boy's body, reviving the boy, healing him completely. After being convinced that Eric is not a bad person, Henrik decides to help Eric unravel the mystery of who he really is and why he has such tremendous power. Henrik then takes Eric and Christine to a ruined farm, where Eric's relatives have lived before. Outside the hospital, a crowd of people eagerly awaited the appearance of Eric, whom they assumed was Thor's incarnation. Eric looked confused about whether he should be happy because everyone was cheering for him or afraid that he might accidentally hurt them if he lost control. On the way to the farm, Henrik gives a book about the legend of the Norse gods to Christine, in which it is stated that after the events of Ragnarok, Thor's children built a farm which they believe to be a farm belonging to Eric's relatives that burned down several years ago. If so, then they can be sure that Eric is actually a descendant of Thor, the god of thunder in Norse mythology. At the farm, Eric is brought to his knees and unable to move while standing over a type of Vegvisir. Henrik ordered construction workers to excavate the historic site to find out more. On the other hand, Hathaway and American officers set up the military around the farm without Henrik or other authorities knowing. Hathaway then ordered the soldiers to shoot Eric dead immediately if he showed any suspicious behavior. After digging, they found an underground cave filled with stone inscriptions inscribed with Nordic runes, as well as a depiction of Yggdrasil, an enormous and central sacred tree in Nordic mythology. In the inscription, it is said about the beginning of the descendants of Thor arriving on Earth after the events of Ragnarok and staying on Earth until now, where it is confirmed that Eric is indeed one of the descendants of Thor. Eric is then informed that it is time for him to go to the cave, where he is directed to a stone box containing 3 heirlooms belonging to Thor, the god of thunder, gloves or jarngraber, Medjingir or belt, and the last is the most famous weapon belonging to the god of thunder, namely Mjolnir. When Eric wore all these heirlooms, suddenly a violent thunderstorm struck, which could be controlled with Thor's hammer. When Eric had come out of the cave lifting Mjolnir, a crowd of residents who had gathered near the excavation site then tore down the fence and rushed in to take a closer look at the legendary weapon of the god of thunder, which is now in Eric's hands. After that, Christine seemed about to approach Eric, where she seemed happy because Eric finally found out who he was and has now become very famous and acclaimed by the townspeople. But immediately, Hathaway ordered the soldiers to shoot Eric, whose shot hit Christine, killing her. Enraged, Eric uses Thor's hammer to summon a massive lightning storm that engulfs the area, causing many casualties. The film ends with a newscast stating that, after the incident, a cult of Thor has emerged. Eric is, at large, wanted as a terrorist. This film teaches that conditions make a person choose the path of being a good or a bad person. When we are given other strengths or talents, the environment can make that person decide whether to use their strengths and talents to do good or destroy those around them. So use your power as best and wisely as possible.